Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. I hope that everybody had a great Christmas if you were celebrating, and want to get back into the news. It's obviously it's a bit busy, interestingly, in somewhat of a maybe a bad way or a good way, depending on your view. So let's first talk about the obvious kind of elephant in the room here, which was what happened with Cody Gakpo. As seemingly overnight, Liverpool once again marched forward and stole a signing from under Manchester United's nose. It isn't the first time. It won't be the last time. However, I will say something about this. The first player that I recall this happening to fairly recently was Thiago. It was one that was somewhat unreported how close United were to signing him, and then they came back to him. I've talked about this in some of the videos about the Thiago tapes, about what actually happened with that signing, how it was held up over a single year by Joel Glazer, and then Liverpool came back, signed him practically overnight, and then United came back to the deal and found out he had been signed. They didn't even know. They found out he had been signed. So this has happened before with Liverpool. I don't think Thiago worked out quite as amazingly as it seemed like it would with the player. Obviously, Darwin Núñez, that situation. And now, once again, in Cody Gakpo. So it's real interesting and annoying because you see so many conflicting reports now. You see reports from some people saying United were never really considering him as a serious target, whereas you have Mullock saying they were in talks over a 45 million fee, but they wanted to spread it out, whereas Liverpool paid more up front. That is a consideration. PSV wanted more money up front. United's financial outlook right now isn't great, but it's confusing, and it's confusing because we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you had Lowry saying that, Murtaugh met with his agent recently, who's also the agent of Ten Hag, and these guys would be pretty well in with this in knowing. I personally suspect there's a little bit of conflict within the club, as there always tends to be with United under the Glazers, as to, do we want to spend the money on this? Will we spend the money on this? But more than that, there's another thing. I have said this for some time. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between... There's been a bit of a disconnect between football, business, and the manager. In summer, they basically threw out, before summer, all of the football stuff, people, recruitment. There was this disconnect between these people even back during the manager recruitment process. I talked a lot about that, and it was a very confusing time, and a lot of it was confirmed later in that they were offering contracts to Pochettino while hiring Ten Hag. Very confusing stuff. But there's been a big disconnect. In summer, they basically threw out the playbook and said, okay, we're just going to get whatever Ten Hag wants. So obviously, Lisandro Martinez, Tyrone Malaysia, Anthony, the Christian Eriksen, the vast majority of the signings outside probably Casemiro were purely down to Ten Hag targets. That's not how most clubs operate. It's not how United intend to operate in the future. So they spent a lot of time since then recruiting, hiring data people, analysts, things like that, headed up by Dominic Jordan. I've talked about this before. And so I had the information that Goncalo Ramos was the top target from scouts and such for striker. And that was seemingly confirmed, while at the same time it was viewed that Ten Hag wanted Cody Gakpo, and so maybe it was both. And I don't know. I tweeted to this effect some weeks back, that Goncalo Ramos is definitely the profile they've been looking at for striker. So why Cody Gakpo? Because then he'd be viewed as a left wing, and you've got Rashford, and you've got Sancho, you've got Garnacho, you've got Martial, who all play better off the left. So it's a little bit confusing in that regard. And I have some suspicion that there is a bit of a disconnect within the club of, why would we want to get Cody Gakpo when he's not the striker we want for the future, and he just overloads in another position where we have a lot of players? I think there's somewhat of a rationale to that, and so I don't know whether it was a matter of simply Glazers not approving the money, United not having the money, or the club not really moving forward strongly with the transfer for other reasons. I don't know the truth to that, and it's a little bit confusing as to what the truth of it is. But it's even more confusing when you consider the rest. So in the last video, then let's talk about what comes next. In the last video, we said that we talked about the Joao Felix rumors, and someone corrected me on this, and you're right, and it's annoying because I used to say Joao Felix, like Jose Mourinho, and then someone corrected me that it was Joao because it's Portugal, so now I keep saying Joao, but it's Joao Felix, right? It's Joao Felix. So with Joao Felix, we talked about how I mentioned that they had talks with Mendes about it. It has been proposed. The issue is this. We were wondering, is he the addition to Gakpo or the alternate? It seems that he's the cheap alternate to Cody Gakpo in January, a loan for Joao Felix. The question is, would United be able to... The question is now on Joao Felix. Would United propose an offer that would be acceptable to Atletico? They're looking for an obligation. I don't know if they're going to get it, however, because Chelsea are in the race, but they have Nkunku already done for summer, so they're not going to offer an obligation, right? Why would they do that? Buy two of the same player. Arsenal are making offers for Mudirik in right, the Ukrainian, I believe it is, or they're making offers for him. So obviously they're looking at that in January. So I don't think they're going to offer an obligation for summer. So maybe nobody's going to offer an obligation unless it's one of these other clubs, out of the blue, Bayern or someone like that, right? So if nobody offers an obligation, this gives United an opportunity. Their loan may be the best. Maybe they can offer $6 million in loan fee and full wages covered with the savings on Ronaldo and bring in Joao Felix for the rest of the 6 months, and then maybe they have an option for summer if they decide it worked out really well versus going for Goncalo Ramos. So I would start to consider that Joao Felix is an option for United in January in terms of bringing an attacker. He's not an out-and-out 9, but he does play a bit more centrally, and I think he plays a bit like Tony Martial, or like how Ten Hag has wanted Tony Martial to play, or when Tony's been playing at his best in a heavy link-up, drop deep, get involved, but hopefully energetic and press from the front. We would see how he'd fit within the system. It's really hard to gauge him in his talents under Simeone, where he's been poorly used for years, and by all accounts, isn't happy. Hence the whole reason he wants to leave. So I'm just looking up here to make sure I get anything else that I wanted to talk about before we move into Enzo Fernandes, because it's this whole thing is very, very interesting. So when it comes to the forward position, to kind of finalize that, Goncalo Ramos is viewed as basically the top target in the football side of things. He's a more of an all-arounder in terms of a number 9, good at link-up, lots of things. And that's the profile they've been looking at for striker. That's where they're headed. So that's probably why they wouldn't want to buy or have an obligation for Joao Felix. But they could, paying for Goncalo Ramos in January, I don't see how they're going to do it. They don't have the money. But come summer, he should be a definite target. And then maybe it's between him and Joao Felix if they can manage a loan for Joao. But I think this has been confirmed. Mullock's report came out and confirmed that information that I've had, which was that it said this morning they will now look to plan B, which is Goncalo Ramos is admired, but they may not have the money, so Joao Felix would be a loan alternate possibility. I think those are the two main names we would look at now. I'm not saying there might be more. There might be more coming up now. I still keep an eye personally on the Vlahovic situation with Juventus, as he's unhappy there and their whole thing. I'm just saying to keep an eye on it. I don't know. I don't believe they've made any contact, but it's one to keep an eye on. So moving from that into the Enzo Fernandes situation, because this is real interesting. A reliable reporter today says that United are at the front of the race and that are also involved Real Madrid and Liverpool. There's been a few reliable reports. There's a report from Portugal last night that Jorge Mendes was going to bring an offer worth more than 120 million to Benfica. Now, there's a possibility here that Benfica, while a release clause of 120 million, they need all the money up front for a release clause. That's how it works. Someone could structure a deal a little over 120, maybe 120 plus add-ons, and then structure it. I don't know that Benfica need the cash now. They got so much money from Darwin Nunez and all of that. They're likely going to sell Ramos in summer too, right? I don't know what their financial situation is, but there's a lot of reports, and it's Portugal, so it's hard to know what's true and what isn't. But that reporter is quite reliable. The one who reported that, he reported it. he was on top of the Lisandro Martinez deal about him choosing United and all that is good for Argentina players. So it's very interesting. This is what I posted on Christmas Day. It was an Enzo-focused update. And so I'll read this out. Benfica are in the eye of many clubs. Madrid and Liverpool are looking at Jude, and Florentino Luis, who is also who's a Benfica player, who's been there for some time. He's a pretty good young talent, 23 years old now. Madrid and Liverpool are looking at Jude and Florentino Luis as major targets for the midfield, but they're also looking at Enzo Fernandes, and they've basically identified the same three midfielders for potential signings: Jude Bellingham, Florentino Luis, as well as Enzo Fernandes. While Manchester United and also Newcastle are both also interested in Enzo Fernandes, having scouted him there, with Manchester United also having scouted, obviously, other players there in Goncalo Ramos and such. United seem to be making concrete plans right now to address the midfield again in summer. And again, I say summer. That's what I've heard, summer, because I don't see how they're going to do this now. I don't see anybody making this deal in January. Now, that may not be true. Let's look at the alternative. You could agree a deal now, get it signed and agreed for summer, have him join in summer just to get ahead of the pack. If United know they've got a lot of, this is my only speculation on this, if United know they've got a lot of money coming and Enzo's like the number one holy grail target, agree a deal ahead of time for him to join in summer. Whatever club doesn't get Jude between Real Madrid and Liverpool will look to Enzo or Florentino Luis as a possibility. So it could end up working out for everybody. You could see United get Enzo, Madrid get Jude, and Liverpool getting Florentino Luis. It's a possibility. There's three players here, though United aren't so much interested in Florentino Luis, and I don't think have a chance at Enzo, so they're a little more hyper-focused in a respect of scouting on someone like Enzo Fernandes. But the suggestions, I posted this on Christmas, that Liverpool had agreed anything were totally wide of the mark with Enzo Fernandes. They haven't agreed anything. And Benfica say that nobody has approached them for permission to speak to the player, meaning they have not made an offer or made a deal with him yet. There's others being scouted at Benfica, as we know. So it's an interesting situation. The whole thing has a lot of potential to go many different ways, but it's very curious, the reports that are coming out now, and I don't know how to see all of this, because I just don't see that United have the money. When we look at it, it does not seem that United have the money to make these deals. One of the factors in consideration for why, the whole Gakpo thing fell through is because they could not offer enough money up front to satisfy what PSV need. Doesn't all make total sense. But these are very reliable reporters. I mean, this is Argentina's most reliable, or one of the most reliable, that, is Manchester United, Liverpool, Madrid. This is what we were talking about. Now it's coming out. I just don't get it. I don't see how we have the money, and I don't know if the Glazers will approve any sort of money. So I'm keeping my eyes open on this. I don't want to commit to anything here because, frankly, I don't know. The information I've been saying for months on the targets has been, to me, totally confirmed, but I don't think anybody knows right now what the hell the Glazers are doing, because it all ties into the sale. The financials are bad. The debt is high. Could they have not had the money for a Gakpo because they want to set aside money for Enzo? I mean, these are all crazy theories we could think about. Point being, what happens now? Most realistic, Joao Felix on loan. That's the most realistic in terms of actual possibility. In terms of what we are looking at otherwise, Goncalo Ramos, Enzo Fernandes. That's the situation. Could they be bringing in somehow Enzo Fernandes and getting a deal done and somehow, approving the money and all of that? Who knows? But come summer, I would say Goncalo Ramos and Enzo Fernandes are definitely top targets, or highly admired targets from the football side of the club. And supposedly, Ten Hag signed off on the idea of Goncalo Ramos. Supposedly he's very interested, who wouldn't be, in Enzo Fernandes, and wants a midfielder. So a lot up in the air right now. A lot's going to depend on this. If the sale is moving forward quickly and we get news in January, as we hear about, perhaps they could spend a bunch of money. And then, somehow it gets paid off by, not somehow, it would get paid off by the debts and things like that, and would be viable if new owners come in. So it's a lot to think about. It's kind of making my brain hurt. I'm trying to figure out what is going on, but it's all, to me, up at the top, and that's why nobody knows right now. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly what's going to happen on this. But the reports are interesting. United are obviously active in the field, discussions, scouting, analysts, all of that, doing what they want and looking at people. We know the targets. As far as we know the targets. This information is being confirmed. Let's just see, how it comes out now. So thank you for watching this video. United have a game today as well, so back to the Premier League. Need to get a win. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. Leave me your thoughts below on what you think is going on, what you think is the most likely outcome. I think it's Joao Felix on loan and nothing actually happens till summer otherwise, but we could agree deals early when new owners come in. So maybe mid-March we get a deal for Enzo or something. Who knows? But I think Goncalo Ramos and Enzo will be the sagas of the summer, and the main signings come summer. And right now, Joao Felix on loan is the best we can hope for in January. I'm being a bit pessimistic on this with the Glazers. So that's my thoughts. Leave me yours. Thanks for watching.